I think if me and Drake made a song, it would actually sound like really good. There's a misconception that Afrobeats is the sound of Africa as a whole. It's just like me saying, oh, music from America is called America Beats or Ameri Beats. Like, you see how crazy that sounds? In Africa, who says there's just one sound? There's high life, there's gyration, there's makossa, Namapiano, there's gum, there's Bacardi, there's Ghanaian music, there's Al Qaeda, there's Azonto, Mauritius, Madagascar. I think people just need to open up their minds because Africa is extremely diverse.
This is Vinci Angamsi with Boardroom, and I'm here with CKay. CKay, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So you are one of the highest selling Afrobeats artists in the world right now, and it's been really fun to watch your career rise. What moments stand out to you the most when you think about your work so far?
There's so many moments, you know. I think the beginning of every journey is a moment. So the very beginning of my journey is a moment. I'd say the day I dropped CKay The First is a moment as well, very important moment, because I'd say that EP really changed everything for me. You know, Love Wantity came off that EP. Aside Love Wantity, I think people really got a chance to understand who I was through that EP. I would also say the day of my very first tour. You know, I did a tour in Nigeria, across the country, and I did a tour in North America, US, Canada, you know, and Europe. So that was also a moment for me because it was the first time. And I'd say now, another important moment is the release of CKay The Second. So I think that's the beginning of another chapter and another era. So these ones kind of stand out for me.
And before we get into CKay The Second, I want to go a little bit back to, like you said, Love Wantity. It came out in 2019, but by 2022, it already reached 1 billion streams on Spotify, and now it's regarded as truly one of the most successful songs in Afrobeats of all time. So how did that change your creative approach?
Well, I wouldn't say it changed my approach per se. Like, you know, from the very beginning, my mission has always been to like make music that was very representative of who I was and where I'm from and like my experiences and like stories that I have the right to tell. You know, I feel like everybody has different level of rights to tell different stories, you know. So yeah, that's always been the mission. And in terms of the sound, I've always wanted to just like approach Afrobeats in my own unique way, in my own from my own perspective, my own point of view. So, you know, that's still the mission and that's still the process, so to speak. But I think the fact that a song can blow up like 2 times, because Love Wantity, I always say blow up 2 times. It's a testament to how much authenticity can be felt even across time, like a time span, a long time span. People can still like feel the authenticity of the music and they can still resonate with the frequency the artist was resonating on when he made the song. You know, I think that's a testament to the authenticity. So for me, I haven't really changed the process much. It's still, you know, the same mission, the same process, but probably, you know, approach could just vary from every now and then, but it's still the same mission.
Well, I mean, even 6 years since its release, it's still a very popular song online and largely in part on TikTok. And so when it first came out, was there an orchestrated campaign by your team to push it out forward? Or did you just allow people to enjoy the song until it reached the viral status?
So at the time Love Wantity came out, I was signed to a label in Nigeria called Chocolate City. So I wouldn't say there was much of a global strategy at first, you know, because obviously at the time there was also COVID too. You know, COVID came shortly after that song was released. But yeah, there wasn't really much of a global strategy. But then, as it were, the song just grew legs. Let me put it like that. Like it just grew legs. Nigerians also, obviously, like my Nigerian fan base played a huge role, like in giving it the initial visibility, but then it just grew legs and, you know, started to do a madness even beyond the original strategy, like beyond the scope of the original strategy that my team had in place at the time, So yeah, I think shortly after that, my contract expired and I signed with another label, Warner Music South Africa. And I would say that was when a bit of a global strategy came into play. And I'd say when the song went viral the second time, I had a wide team of, partners aside Warner Music South Africa that, came in to push and everything. So big shout out to, all the teams and all the hardworking people that were involved, because, it takes a village to do something of that magnitude, regardless of, the music is great and everything, but obviously teamwork, goes a long way in everything in life. So, yeah.
Well, speaking of Nigerians, you've worked with a lot of collaborators in the space. Davido, Iris Star, Joe Boy, Janelle Monáe. There are so many people. What do you look for in a collaborator, and what, personally and musically, and who are some of your other dream collaborations?
And the things I look out for is, first of all, chemistry. I think the artists I'm collaborating with and we should be able to sit down and just have a conversation about non-music things. First of all, I think that's usually very key. I also look for sonic compatibility. Like, the sounds of the two artists need to make sense. Like, I should be able to hear the artist's music and hear my music, and I should be able to hear it happening. I think that's cool. But I also think sometimes, the unexpected collabs also, people find those very interesting and they end up being very interesting. But yeah, these are a few things I look for. I would say artists I'm looking to collaborate with, or that I would like to collaborate with. I think if me and Drake made a song, it would actually sound like really good. Like, aside me wanting to see it happen, just like as a fan of music, I think it would sound good, I also think me and Chris Brown would make something that would sound really good too. I think his R&B, his strong R&B background, like fused with my Afrobeats / Afrofusion vibe, I think that would do something really crazy.
And Chris Brown has worked with Afrobeats artists, so this is sort of in his already wheelhouse. He has experience doing it.
Yeah, and I think he kills it too. Like, he has a higher kill it rate than most, artists that are not Afrobeats.
I mean, you have such a versatile sound. How do you keep your own voice distinct when you are working with others collaborators?
I think it's to never lose sight of what you're even trying to say in the first place. I think, when you remember who you are and remind yourself who you are, it's difficult to have your voice drowned out or swayed by another voice. Like, I think, just sticking to the plan, sticking to the mission, and staying true to your sound, I think that's like the key for me.
I want to go now a little bit talking about your global brand. How did you start the process with working with your team to get your brand, that who we see as CKay right now?
I would say building my brand to what it is today was a very long process, and it involved, I'd say, many people, at different stages. Like, from the first label I signed to, to working with MI, who's the first rapper who signed me, to working with Warner Music Africa, to working with AWOL now. Every step of the way has kind of come with its own contributions to the brand. Like, the brand just keeps growing, and each of these people, as much as these are companies, I'm mentioning names of companies, they are actual people, that are in those companies who are doing the work. They are the ones who are working hard to make, to basically make everything work, basically. So all those people played a role. I'll say on my management too. My former manager, Favor, the plug as well. I feel they all played a role. So it's a team effort.
And outside of music, as you grow any passions outside of music, is that still following the same process?
I have a few passions outside of music. I like swimming. I like to go on vacation. I like good food. I like to just hang out with my friends. I love video games. But yeah, these are just things I do to basically unwind when I'm very stressed and stuff. But after the unwinding, it's back to work.
And when you think about the promotion and the branding behind all that you've accomplished, what was the investment? What did the investment look like in promoting your music outside of Africa? Because people in Africa obviously are well aware of Afrobeats, but in the US or in other countries, that's not the case. And so did you have a different approach?
I would say for the most part, the fans found the music themselves. I think we live in a world today where people have access to what they want, and through social media or any other means, or parties or the clubs or DJs or radio, people can easily and readily find and access the music they want. So I think the fans played a large role. But aside the fans, obviously, like I said, the countless people and teams that I have worked with at different points, they all played a role, in, I would say, expanding the sound to a very crazy radius, basically, because obviously I've not been to, let's say, Japan, for instance, but working with the Asian team, who is in Japan, I think that will give you a higher chance of your music being known in Japan. So that's kind of what it was. It was like me working with lots of global teams and, putting in work, traveling to these places, doing promo, doing shows, going on tour, constantly performing the music. I mean, these are all the things that I would say to a large extent, played a role in moving the music. Because the music, you need to really get it out there, Aside that, just the internet, like in real life, you have to be out there. And we've been out there for a good number of years, and we're still out there, So that's what it is, basically.
Do you remember the first time you heard your songs played in a country that you'd never visited, like Japan or anywhere else?
Yeah, like there's so many, man. I would say, I mean, I'd say at a certain point, my excitement kind of shifted away from the song being played somewhere to more like me going there and doing a show and seeing people come out. That kind of excited me more. And I would say one of those places was Bali, Indonesia. I did a show in Bali, I think last year, and it was sold out. I'd never been to Bali. It was crazy. The energy was so crazy. I did a show in Lebanon, Dubai, I've been to so many places aside just the US, Canada. The world is a lot wider than just the US and Canada and Africa, So me being in all these places, Saudi Arabia as well, it was just very crazy and exciting for me to see this is real love. Aside TikTok and all that stuff and trends and dance trends and all that stuff, this is real. This is me going to a country that's not my country, and I'm like, oh, I'm having a show on this day and thousands of people buy tickets and come. I think that's crazy, and big shout out to everyone out there supporting CKay, coming to the shows. I see you and I love you.
And when you look out, you see such a diverse crowd, I'm assuming, of people that come from different backgrounds, age groups that have all, and that's what they all share in common, is a universal love and appreciation for your music.
Yes, basically. That's literally it. And it's, I think it's a beautiful thing.
You've described your music as emo Afrobeats, but I think one of the most beautiful thing about this genre is it fuses with so many other genres. We've seen Afrobeats when it comes to hip hop, comes to R&B, but do you see a world where we could see Afrobeats with country or with rock or any other genre that's not something we've explored before?
I mean, who knows? You know, you could have Afrobeat and anything. Who knows? It's up to the musicians to work hard and, you know, come up with these things. So I think if someone is listening out there and wants to make any of these sounds, yeah, welcome to be our guest.
This is the pitch right now. You're saying, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I think it could work with like even rock. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, for me though, my own sound is like, you know, emo Afrobeats is. I think emo Afrobeats is very different from emo rock or emo anything else, because, you know, Africa itself has a sound. You know, there's a way African music just sounds. There's a certain types of chords we use, certain types of instruments we use that just sounds better, that fits the vibe better. So like, you know, an emo Afrobeat would sound different from an emo rock. It's very emotional leaning chords, very, you know, very water sign vibes. You know, I'm a water sign, I'm Cancer. So very, very water sign vibes and very heartfelt lyrics, very deep, you know, introspective type of stuff. You know, that's kind of what emo Afrobeat is all about. It's all about the vibes and it's all about, you know, the emotional youth, basically. The music of the emotional African youth.
we both know the Afrobeat sound because we are both African. But for those who do not know the Afrobeat sound outside of using our different instruments or anything like that, how would you describe it's changed since you started making music, or even in the past with your father, for example, your church choir?
Yeah. Well, I was actually not in the church choir, but my dad taught me. My dad was or is in the church choir. But I was actually never in the choir, but I learned piano from him, and I'm a big fan of the choir. But basically, I think Afrobeat has changed so much. Decade in, decade out, it changes. Like, let's even go back to before the name Afrobeats. Like, let's even go back to pre-colonization. Like, let's go back that far. Like, Afrobeats or African music was very, very, very ethnic, very traditional. You know, it wasn't mainstream, it wasn't pop, it wasn't polished. It was very raw and very like, you know, it vibrated with you on a very spiritual level. It wasn't like what it sounds like today. Then obviously over time you had people like Sonny Ade, you had people like, you know, Rex Lawson, Ebenezer Obey, you had Bright Chimezie, Victor Wifo. These are all high life musicians. Then you have Fela Kuti, who was at first a high life musician, then switched up and created a new fusion and called it Afrobeat without the S. So that's kind of like, this is the journey of the sound, like, you know, traveling from all these stages and forms, and it keeps morphing, keeps evolving. And like, you know, from that era, you have the era of Two-Face, D'banj, P-Square. Like, these are all legends that, you know, when I was growing up, these were the guys who were making Afrobeats and they were, you know, killing it at that point. This was before Apple Music. This was before Spotify, before all that stuff, before streaming. I would say that kind of further evolved to, you know, to my era now. Or I would say to Wizkid Davido era first, you know, then to our era now. Like, we're the new guys who are coming up with, you know, a slightly different angle to the sound from the era before us. We're just pushing it in a different way. I feel like my generation of Afrobeat artists were very daring. Like, we're very experimental. We're trying to just do things outside the box as opposed to sticking to the way it has been done for decades. You know, we're basically creating a forceful evolution, basically. And mind you, there was a time when African songs used to be 8 minutes long, 9 minutes long.
We remember that. Played at all the African parties.
Yeah, literally, like, they, you know, back in the days, there weren't producers who made beats.
Yeah.
You know, these people would basically, the musician and his band would go into the studio or one of their rehearsals. They'll just jam they'll jam for like 8 minutes or 20 minutes. Sometimes they do like the whole album, they jam for 30, 40 minutes straight. And they'd be like, did you get that? You got that? Okay, let's release it. That's the album. Like, that's kind of the vibe.
No
like,
editing, no sound mixing.
I mean, I wasn't there, so I can't.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I can't tell you if there was sound editing or whatever, but like just from me listening to all the retro stuff, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like they were just vibing and recording it and putting it out. It sounds very raw, very authentic, very like not too produced. But obviously now, like, our music is a lot more produced. You have producers who make beats now, everything is getting very fancy now. So yeah, Afrobeats has really come a long way and it's still going to keep evolving.
And as you talk about evolving, I mean, you mentioned your new project, CKay The Second. It still taps into that emotional vulnerability that we were introduced to you as an artist. And I think there's a commitment from you, correct me if I'm wrong, to maintain that for your fans. What makes this project, though, different from your previous eras?
I'll say what makes it different is the level of growth and awareness that I'm at right now is definitely like, I'd say at a higher position than previous projects. Obviously with each project, I basically experience different things, like the person I was when I made CKay the First and the person I am now with CKay the Second, it's still the same person. It's just that I've been through so many things in between point A and point B. Like there has been so much that has happened in between. So like all these experiences, all these stories, all these energies, what I basically put in to create the next project, then put in the energy of that next project for the next one and the next one and the next one. So basically the journey has been, progressing from the very beginning in an exponential curve, basically. And now we're at CKay The Second. It's a new chapter. With CKay The First, the mindset was basically, I am the first CKay. I'm not the next anyone. I'm not necessarily trying to copy anyone or be like or sound like anyone. I'm just trying to make music that I love and that I think sounds right and great to me. And, my perspective on music. And basically, CKay The Second is a continuation of that legacy. It's like a sequel to that.
And we've talked about Afrobeats, of course, as a genre in the past, but looking ahead, where do you see the genre going in 5 years?
I mean, in 5 years, we'll have a lot more Grammys than we have now. The Afrobeats community of artists, I mean, I think the achievements have been on the rise. Everyone is achieving so much in a short period of time. And I think 10 years ago, Afrobeat artists were not necessarily achieving those things. So I think in the next 5 years is obviously going to grow at an exponential rate. Like there'll be a lot more Billboard records, Hot 100 records. There'll be a lot more Grammys. There'll be a lot more arena shows. Basically what's happening now, imagine it times 5. That's kind of how I see it.
Africa to the world.
The world to Africa.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And when we talk about Afrobeats compared to something like reggaeton or dancehall, I think sometimes there is that criticism that we Afrobeats or Africans borrowed content from reggaeton, dancehall artists, and we did not give them credit. Is there any truth to that? And if not, then why would you think people are even mentioning that?
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
What would credit look like to you?
Like you would say, I was inspired by, the sounds of
You mean
Bob
like
Marley
in
or
an
something.
interview or something?
No, just in general, like your music.
Like on the song, like at the end of the song, I'll be like, I'm inspired by Bob Marley, like that.
I mean, I didn't say it. Other people have said it, so I'm just asking on behalf of.
For me, in my interviews, I mean, if I was inspired by something, I'll most likely say it. I don't know. I can't really speak for every other artist. But I always say it in my interviews that I grew up listening to this, I grew up listening to that, and, all this shaped me to, shaped my taste to become the artist I am today. I always say that, like, I grew up listening to, aside the African stuff, like obviously the Two-Face, the D'banj, the, you know, P Square. I also grew up listening to Chris Brown, Usher, Jay-Z, Kanye West. Like back in the day, I grew up listening to all this stuff. So, I mean, all these things would have probably contributed a thing or two to the sound growing up. You know, classical music too. Like my dad used to play lots of classical music in the house. So I was inspired by that. So I mean, I do give credits. I can't speak for anyone else though.
A lot of people come in with their thoughts of Africa and West Africa compared to other parts of the continent, and even the music. What are some misconceptions that you've heard that you think we should no longer be playing into?
Misconceptions. Okay, I would say there's a misconception that Afrobeats is the sound of Africa as a whole. And I think that's inaccurate. You know, African music is just like me saying America beats.
Yeah.
Like, think about that for a second. Like, oh, music from America is called America beats or Ameri beats. Like, you see how crazy that sounds? Like, American music has so many like subcategories. You have country, you have jazz, you have bluegrass music, you have pop. Even in pop, you have like different types of pop. You have house, you have this, you have that. So like in Africa, who says there's just one sound? Like Afrobeats is literally a coined term that was coined by the Western world to just classify. Someone came up with it, and everybody has been running with it since. But there's so many types of music. There's high life. There's gyration. There's makossa. There's all kinds of stuff in in Nigeria and South Africa. There's more than just amapiano. There's gqom. There's so many types of South African music. There's so many subcategories of sub-house. There's Bacardi. There's so many sounds. In West Africa, there's Ghanaian music. There's Al-Qaeda. There's Azonto. I could go on and tell you all the types of music. When you go to North Africa, you have Morocco, you have Algeria. They have a completely different sound from us, but this is still Africa. You have East Africa, you have Kenya, you have Ethiopia, you have Somalia, you have Zanzibar, you have Mauritius. These are all very different places with different sounds. In East Africa, where you have Reunion Island, Mauritius, Madagascar, their sound is very, very island sounding. It doesn't really sound like West African music at all. So it's like, I think that's a very big misconception. It's kind of like how many people, a couple years ago, so many Americans thought Africa is a country. Like, I think that's so ridiculous. But like, I think people just need to open up their minds to, learn more about the diversity of Africa, because Africa is extremely diverse.
And even when we're both West African, but both of our countries are very diverse, down to the music, to what we eat, to the traditions that we follow.
The drip, everything.
Exactly. Yeah, we might be neighbors, but we still a little bit different.
Yeah.
So outside of, music and performing and all of that, what is something that we would be shocked or interested to know about you?
Well, that I'm not engaged. That would probably shock you, right?
Exactly, yeah.
But hey,
not engaged.
I'm not engaged. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Looking back to when you started, what was the most underrated move that contributed to where you are at right now?
Me just waking up one day, looking around at everything, or looking at the whole industry or the whole space or the whole sound or genre, and realizing that I want to lead, not follow. I think waking up one morning and deciding that was a game changer for me. So.
And when you did that, look at where we're at now. now you had the first song to have 1 billion streams on Spotify.
Praise be to God. I think it's a testament to, doing things differently, taking a different approach, escaping the matrix, and just doing things a different way, At the time, TikTok was something people used to laugh at. There was a time people used to actually laugh at TikTok. It's crazy. Like saying it now in 2025, it sounds so dumb to me. Now, everybody has a TikTok now. Everybody's making TikToks now. Every Afrobeat artist that was probably too cool to make TikToks makes TikToks now because they probably have to and because it makes sense and they should because, why not? The world is advancing. You should. I would say I'm a very firm believer in doing things different even when everybody doesn't seem to clock it yet. Like, even if you look crazy at the time, I still believe in doing things different and doing what you believe in. People will always wake up eventually.
And it can almost sort of feel isolating when you see you're venturing out by yourself, but in a way it almost feels rewarding when you see everyone catching up and seeing what you had envisioned years ago.
Yeah, it's just that the annoying part is they catch up and forget to give you credit for inspiring them to do it in the first place.
So I want to close on your legacy. You are releasing your second EP, and I don't want to look far ahead into your career. We've got so many more years, and I'm assuming many more projects to go. What sort of legacy do you want to leave behind, specifically to Nigeria, but also just to the world?
I want to basically, be remembered as a person who challenged the status quo, who did things differently, who thought outside the box, who composed great music that lived forever, as opposed to just quick hits or songs that are hot now and they're I want to be remembered as the person who made eternal music that lives forever and music that elevates the vibration of the human race. Yeah.
This is Vinciane with Boardroom here at CKay. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.